Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? On behalf of Mortar Honor Society, I would like to welcome you all to our last lecture series. My name is Amani Kaliru, and I have the honor of serving as the historian of this chapter of Mortar. So Mortar is a national honor society that recognizes college seniors for their service, leadership, and their scholarship. So our members are committed not only to academic excellence, but also to contribute to our collegiate campus. And the last lecture series is one of our most meaningful traditions. It invites a distinguished faculty member to share the message that they would give if this was their last lecture. So to begin tonight's program, I would like to invite someone who has the privilege of learning from and working closely with our future professor. Please welcome me in joining Avery Foray.
Good evening. I'm Avery Foray, and I am a senior in Dr. Major's research group, the Computational Chemistry Group. And I first met Dr. Majors my freshman year in General Chemistry 1. And if you know Dr. Majors, you know that was quite a time. But I first met him in Gen Chem 1, and he quickly became one of my favorite professors. He became a mentor, a confidant, an encouraging voice, and a friend, just as he has to many of you. His credentials and honors speak volumes of his dedication and success in every aspect of life. Among them, Dr. Majors is a professor of chemistry and chemical physics in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. He is in his 37th year as a professor here at MC. He also graduated from MC in 1982 before earning his PhD in theoretical chemistry at the Quantum Theory Project at the University of Florida. He then worked as a postdoctoral research fellow at Harvard University before returning to MC in 1989. At MC, Dr. Majors has been awarded the Distinguished Professor of the Year in 2005, the College of Arts and Sciences Distinguished Faculty Lecturer in 2003, Chemistry Alumnus of the Year in 2011, and the Carol C. West Faculty Advocate Award in 2018. In 2003, he was also awarded Mississippi Chemist of the Year by the Mississippi section of the American Chemical Society. In 2024, he became the first person to win this award a second time. In addition, in 2024, Dr. Majors was awarded the Outstanding Contribution to Science Award by the Mississippi Academy of Sciences, the highest annual award the MAS gives annually. Dr. Majors has published 41 research articles, delivered 50 invited lectures, and given another 43 professional presentations. But the statistic that he is probably most proud of is the 757 chemistry presentations given by his research group in the Computational Chemistry Group. He has mentored over 140 research students since the group's inception in 1994. Dr. Majors is married to Dr. Tina Majors, a retired nurse and nurse educator. They have two sons, Dr. Brandon Majors, who is the chair of the chemistry department at Belhaven, and Dr. Andrew Majors, who is the owner of the Renewal Health Group in Madison. Brandon and his wife Leslie have two children, Grayson and Amelia, and Andrew and his wife Holly have three, Robin, Wesley, and Cole. If you know Dr. Majors, you know of his love and commitment to not only his family and his work, but also his students. He has invited us into his home. He has walked alongside us through victories and setbacks, and shown us continuous wisdom and compassion. He should be an example to all future educators of the impact that you can have on your students. As you can see by this room of people, MC loves Dr. Majors, and I cannot think of a professor more deserving of such an award. So please help in welcoming Dr. David Majors in the 2026 last lecture.
He knows we have to climb stairs. I'm getting old. Thank you, Avery, for that very kind introduction.
And she mentioned the 757 student presentations. I think she's given at least 10 of them. But thank all of you for being here tonight. It is great to see so many family and friends who've become family in the audience. I also wish to thank all the students of Mortar Board for this invitation. I have given many invited lectures, but this one is one of the special ones because you students are the ones who chose me. I'm also honored and humbled to be following my friend Ivan Park, who gave this lecture last year. And if you heard it, you know he did a fantastic job. So after receiving this invitation, I began to think about what my topic would be. Most of the invited lectures I give have to do with my research in quantum chemistry, but I knew immediately that would not be appropriate. I've also given many lectures on the importance of undergraduate research, and I've given many lectures on bridging science and faith. Maybe a little more appropriate, but still, I didn't think those were quite right. So I've decided, as the title of the lecture series implies, to follow the lead of Randy Pausch, the Carnegie Mellon computer science professor who was asked to give a last lecture after he had found out that he had terminal cancer. In that lecture, and in the subsequent book he published, Dr. Pausch gave advice not on dying, but on living. And so I've decided to give you 7 pieces of advice that I hope you will find relevant to your lives. So here goes. And you can count, you'll figure out what you get out, because I'm going to number them for you. Number 1, keep learning. Or maybe I should say, if you haven't done so already, learn how to learn. There are many reasons to justify this piece of advice, but let me begin with a pragmatic one. If you know how to learn new things, you will be more adaptable in this economy that becomes more global by the day. With more and more automation and outsourcing, AI, being able to learn new things and adapt may be crucial to your very economic survival. But there is a much higher, more noble reason for learning how to learn. The reason follows from the fact that one of the best ways to learn how to learn is to actually love learning. Neil Postman, a writer and professor of communication arts at New York University, once wrote a piece in which he said he believed that all people aligned themselves with one of 2 groups, the Athenians or the Visigoths. The Athenians flourished about 2,500 years ago. They were probably the first truly literate population on earth. They practiced democracy with much more zeal than we do. They invented philosophy, rhetoric, and very apropos, the Olympics. They wrote and sang epic poems, and they wrote and performed plays that are still performed today. They believed in art, beauty, and that one should strive for excellence in all things. About 2,000 years ago, the vitality of their culture declined, and these people began to disappear. But what they had created did not disappear. Their art, imagination, politics, literature, and language spread all over the world and still affects and enhances our lives today. The second group, the Visigoths, lived about 1,700 years ago. About the only good thing one could say about the Visigoths is that they were good horsemen. They swept through Europe, destroying everything in their path, and eventually overran the Roman Empire. From the Visigoths, we have no poetry, no theater, no logic, and no science. Like the Athenians, the Visigoths too disappeared, but not before they had ushered in the Dark Ages, from which it took Europe almost 1,000 years to recover. Postman's thesis is that we are all either modern-day Athenians or Visigoths. To be an Athenian is to hold knowledge and the quest for knowledge in high esteem, to reason, to experiment, to question. These are exalted activities. The modern-day Visigoth cares little about these things. They think of themselves as the center of the universe, care little of future generations, and think history is merely what is in yesterday's newspaper. To a Visigoth, the quest for knowledge is useless unless it can be used to earn money or gain power over other people. Now, it is much harder to be an Athenian than a Visigoth because you must work to be an Athenian, whereas, if we're honest, we are all in a way natural-born Visigoths. That is why there are so many more Visigoths than Athenians. And I must tell you that you do not become an Athenian simply by attending college. In fact, I have known some true Athenians with little more than high school education. And unfortunately, I have known some physicians, lawyers, and even some PhDs who are truly Visigoths to the core. But speaking for the majority of the faculty of Mississippi College, I hope all of the faculty of Mississippi College, I will tell you that teaching our students how to be an Athenian is our primary goal of their education here at MC. We know we cannot teach our students everything they need to know for their careers. We can only hope that we have instilled in them a love of knowledge and the ability to keep learning. So let me conclude this first piece of advice, which has been filled with metaphor, with something a little more concrete. Think of it as a continuing assignment from this old professor. Read at least 10 books a year. Do this on top of whatever you must read for your current job and on top of any magazine that you read. And even though I like a good crime or spy novel as well as anyone, don't just read fiction. Read a philosophy or a theology book. Read about new advances in science and medicine. Visit a museum. Be an Athenian. Keep learning. Number 2, call your parents often. Years ago, the legendary coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Paul Bear Bryant, was asked by the Bell South Telephone Company to make a television commercial. All that he was supposed to say in his authoritative coach's voice was, "Have you called your mama today?" But when the time came, the bear decided to ad-lib. He looked into the camera and said, "Have you called your mama today? I sure wish I could call mine." That was how the commercial ran. It received a huge response from audiences, and I understand why. Because, as you could tell, I sure wish I could call my parents today. On a personal note, I know that I was extremely blessed with my parents. They were in their mid-40s when I was born, and I had a sister who was 8 years older than me. They essentially had it figured out. Yes, they coupled their boundless love with the right amount of balance of discipline and freedom. I honestly cannot remember ever having a major dispute with my parents. But if your experience is different than mine, probably so, and your parents have drive you crazy often, even if they drive you crazy all the time, you will never know how much you will miss them until they're gone. Know that your parents love you more than you can possibly understand until you become parents yourselves. So, no matter how busy your life becomes, call your parents often. Number 3, enjoy the journey. One can think of life as a train ride. Okay, hopefully a long train ride. But the problem becomes when all we do is concentrate on that next important station. We tell ourselves, when I graduate from college, when I get married, when I get that first job, when I have my first kid, when I get that promotion, when whatever we think is so important finally happens, we believe that then our lives will be great and we'll live happily ever after. But eventually we must realize there is no special station, no one place to arrive at once and for all. The true joy of life is the trip itself. The magical station that makes everything perfect is only a dream. It constantly outdistances us all. Relish the moment is a good motto, especially when coupled with Psalms 118:24. By the way, my mother-in-law is one of her favorite verses. This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. It's not usually the burdens of the day that drive men mad. It's usually the regrets of yesterday and the fears of tomorrow. Regret and fear are twin thieves that rob us of today. So stop pacing the aisles and counting the miles. Instead, eat more ice cream. Watch more sunsets. Climb more mountains. Swim more rivers. Cry less, laugh more. Find joy in the simple things of life, the smile or the hug of a friend, the laughter of a child, the devotion of a puppy. As one of my favorite people to quote, Winnie the Pooh said, life is a journey to be experienced, not a problem to be solved. Live life as we go. The final station will come soon enough. Number 4, seek out the wisdom of elders. For most of human history, humans have respected the wisdom of their elders. We listen to their stories and learn from them. However, in recent years, the cult of youth has dominated our culture to such an extent that sadly the souls of the elder are often ignored, hidden away, disrespected, and marginalized. But this is a mistake. I guess most of you could say that you were seeking the wisdom of elders because you were here tonight listening to me. But that listening to lectures or informational podcasts are really more about being an Athenian. I mean, spend time with those who have much more experience living life than you do. I'm an old professor now, but I remember being a young professor in the early 90s. Back then, we had a small faculty lounge upstairs in the student center where many of us would eat lunch together 3 or 4 times a week. Some of my fondest memories from those early days were eating lunch with Joe Cooper, Billy Hicks, George Pittman, Charles Davis, Phil McCarty, to name just a few. Wise professors that I had when I was a student, or at least knew when I was a student here, and then had the opportunity to be their young colleague. So much wisdom. Those times passed much too quickly. I'm going to pause here to chase a rabbit. Partially because if I didn't do that, all of my former students who are here would begin to wonder, is that really David up there? He's got to chase it. He's got to go down at least one rabbit trail. So I've got to go down at least one rabbit trail. So I just mentioned a bunch of professors' names that if you graduated from here 20 or even maybe 25 years ago, you may have never heard of some of them, maybe all of them. And that's unfortunate. Because I truly believe that the faculty here at MC are extremely blessed because we stand on the shoulders of giants. Fortunately, during this bicentennial year here at MC, you have the opportunity to learn about some of the great professors of the past. I encourage you to visit the bicentennial exhibit in 1826 and learn about some of these great men and women in MC's history. Now back to my talk. Now, I realize that many of you may never have that kind of wonderful opportunity I had to eat lunch 3 or 4 times a week with a bunch of wise professors. But many of you probably do have a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, or even just an older family friend that has some wisdom about living that you could learn. I only knew one of my grandparents, my mother's mother, who died at the age of 93 while I was in junior high. Unfortunately, when she died, I was still too young to realize that she had years of wisdom to share. She was born in the 1880s during Reconstruction. She had lived through 2 world wars, raised her family during the Depression. She buried her husband, one of her children, and her sisters. If I had only known and realized all the wisdom she could have shared with me before she left. Fortunately, I am not the only one who believes in the wisdom of elders. Carl Pillemer, a medical professor at Cornell University, started the Legacy Project in 2004 when he started collecting the practical advice for living from America's elders. His research team has systematically gathered nearly 1,500 responses to the question, what are the most important lessons you have learned over the course of your life? You can check out many of the responses by searching for the Legacy Project at Cornell University. But better still, spend time with the elder relative or friend, listening to their stories. You won't regret it. Number 5, focus more on your eulogy than your resume. In 2015, David Brooks, an op-ed columnist and author, wrote the essay, The Moral Bucket List, which was adapted from his book, The Road to Character, In both, Brooks made the case that there are resume virtues and eulogy virtues. The former are skills you sell, while the latter are those that your family, friends, and colleagues celebrate at your funeral. Few of us want to be remembered at our funeral as a great project manager or a great salesman, or maybe even just a great professor, right? But we lead our lives as if that would be okay. Would it not be better to be remembered as someone who was kind, someone who was brave, someone who was loyal, someone who loved his or her family deeply? We all know that eulogy virtues are more important than the resume ones, but our culture spends way more time teaching the skills and strategies you need for career success than the qualities you need to radiate that sort of inner light. Many of us are clear on how to build an external career than on how to build inner character. As a person of faith, I would recommend the first step is to work on your relationship with God. Because the real question is not what people will say at your funeral, but how you will live the remaining days of your life and how you will enter the next. I will conclude this piece of advice with another quote from Winnie the Pooh. A little consideration, a little thought for others makes all the difference. Number 6, don't forget that the most important things in life are relationships. The most important relationship is the one with your Creator. Please do not forget nor to neglect that one. But all relationships are important. The one with your significant other, the ones with members of your family, relationship with friends, relationship with colleagues, even very casual relationships with people you occasionally encounter as you go through life. They are all important. That's summarized in an old Celtic saying that I will tell you and then let you ponder. We live in the shelter of each other. People often talk about work, money, and success, but we don't emphasize enough the fact that human relationships are the core of our lives. Relationships are the source of all our best memories, and unfortunately the source of all our saddest ones too. Whether it is about your loved one, friends or family, even a random stranger in the street, human connections have the power to give meaning and value to everything. I'll end on a personal story. When our sons were growing up, my wife Tina and I purposely spent almost as much time praying for the relationships our sons had with friends as we did praying for them. And I'm glad that our prayers were answered. I do not mean to imply that all the friendships our sons had while growing up were perfect and nothing but positive. Of course not. But for the most part, they had positively, mutually beneficial friendships. So, don't just remember their relationships are important. Work on them and pray for them. And finally, number 7, follow your heart. Or said another way, do what you love. Please do not misinterpret me. I do not mean follow your bliss, especially if your bliss is sitting on the couch all day watching TV or TikTok videos. No. Okay? I mean as you prayerfully choose a job or career that makes you a contributing member of society, try to choose one in which you have some passion. As with my first piece of advice, there is a pragmatic reason for it. There is less chance that you will be replaced or outsourced if you bring that little something extra to your work. And you can do that if you do what you love and love what you do. But the main reason to follow your heart is that your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe in and what you love to do. Being happy at your work can make up for thousands of dollars in the bank. Ask any MC professor. So many minutes, okay. That is part of being an Athenian. So, if at all possible, don't settle for less. Hopefully your education will open the necessary doors so that you will not have to settle. But also, don't be afraid to change careers if the first one you thought you would love didn't turn out the way you thought it might. Let me conclude this final piece of advice and my talk with a truncated and somewhat toned down version of a poem by slam poet Taylor Mawley entitled, "What Teachers Make." It goes like this. The dinner guests are sitting around the table discussing life. One man, the CEO of a large company, thought he would explain the problem with education as he saw it. He argued, a child can't really learn anything from someone who thought that the best career path was to become an underpaid teacher. To corroborate his statement, he looks around the table and he notices another dinner guest who's a teacher. He says, "Hey, Amy, you're a teacher. What do you make?" Amy, fortunately, who had a reputation for speaking her mind and for honesty, said, "You want to know what I make? I make kids work harder than they ever thought they could. I can make a C+ feel like the Congressional Medal of Honor, or I can make an A- feel like a slap in the face if they didn't do their best. I can make parents tremble when I call home, or I can make them feel like they just won the lottery when I tell them how their child is progressing. You want to know what I make? I make kids question. I make them wonder. I make them criticize. I make them apologize and mean it. I make them understand that if you have the brains, then you follow your heart. And if someone ever tries to judge you by what you make in money, you ignore them." Amy then paused and looked back at the CEO. "You want to know what I make? I make a difference. How about you?" Thank you again for coming. God bless. Godspeed. What do we do now?
I just want to say on behalf of Mortar Board, seriously thank you, Dr. Majors. I think that all of us are going to take, at least hopefully, are going to take your piece of advice and just, change our lives for the better. Can we just thank him one more time, like seriously? And now I think we're just setting up for the panel. So if anyone that's on, and I'm going to invite Brinley to take over.
All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our past lecturers panel. In honor of MC's bicentennial year, we thought it would be a really cool thing to look back into the past and at all of the wisdom and advice that has been shared in the past as well. Also, my name is Brinley. I'm a senior and Mortar Board member here, and I get the privilege of speaking with our panelists and with you all tonight. Let's just get started. Could each of you just tell us who you are and what your role is here at MC?
Okay, I got this. My name is Mignon, and that is like the steak, and it's Kusha. And it's a weird name, but that's what it is. And I teach communication here and have done for about 25 years, and I'm delighted to be here. And Dr. Majors, you made me tear up a little.
Good evening, my name is Christopher Weeks. I'm Associate Professor of Biology and Director of the Honors College here at MC. Was that the question?
Yes.
Catherine Hurd. I'm a professor in psychology. I came here 24 years ago over the master's in mental health counseling and then transitioned to full-time undergraduate, which I absolutely have loved the last probably 12, 15 years, so loving it.
I'm David Miller. I'm a professor in the Department of English and Philosophy, and I've been here for 35 years.
Awesome. Ooh, that one's louder. Thank y'all so much. Our first question is, when you gave your last lecture, Mortar Board last lecture, what was your topic and what drew you to speak on that? Whoever can start.
Oh, okay, I'll start. I was 2019. Let's see, the title then, Friends was kind of trending, re-trending, I guess, at the time. So the title was the one where we talked about the frontal lobe. And it was, so it was really 5 points of looking at ways that we can continue to grow and develop and stimulate frontal lobe with my primary classes being in abnormal psychology. It was just kind of a natural thing, I think, so.
So I was in 2012, and mine was about the awful inevitability and amazing beauty of change.
Mine was in 2015, and it was about life as story.
Actually, I've had the honor of doing it twice, but the most recent one, I think they thought I was going to be gone one time, and they said, oh, well, she's still here. But anyway, the most recent one, I believe, was in 2023, and I chose to talk about things that I learned from music and how that applied to life. Having been a DJ in the past, I thought it was especially apropos, and so I had a lot of fun doing that.
Okay, so if you were given the floor again today, what would you now choose to give a lecture on?
I did think about this. I was pretty good with my first offering, but but genuinely, as I thought on it, I was like, I would do life as journey. And so David's third point there, I was like, he preempted me.
Yeah, the same thing. When David opened up with point 1, I thought, oh, daggum, that was what I was going to talk about. But I had too thought about this, and I thought, well, okay, if I had a title, maybe it would be like Never Graduate. Just because many of you being seniors, you're so anxious to, oh my gosh, when I graduate, that when, if kind of thing. And at our age, I guess, collectively, the wisdom is not something that can be given. Actually, in my last lecture, I talked about, I think Grateful Dead has a line in the Ripple song about that path is for your steps alone. And so as much as you want to, I know with my kids and even my biological kids as well as my students, you want to impart all this wisdom that you've gained along the way. Well, that's really their journey. That really is something that you all have to walk, and you'll get it. But I got to thinking about the never graduate in terms of always learn, to your very last breath. My father always told me, baby, you need to learn something new every day. And it didn't have to be monumental, although it could be, I think here lately, my desire would be for our society to learn, like differences of opinion are not personal attacks, It's an opportunity maybe to learn or to grow if you invite that. There's a quote hanging in my office from Robert Fulghum, the guy who wrote You Learn Stuff in Kindergarten or whatever. But he talks about how life is lumpy. You can have a lump in your oatmeal and a lump in your throat and your lump in your breast, and those are all very different lumps. And so you need to learn the difference between inconveniences and problems. And sometimes that's a good reminder. My oldest daughter, today's her birthday, my youngest daughter rather, today's her birthday. She learned not too long ago at age 23 that you don't put tinfoil in the microwave. So sometimes the learning can just be really, really useful and practical, but every single day you should not go to sleep before you've thought of something you learned that day along the way. So I think that's what I would focus on this time and two, there's just such joy in learning.
So I'm just going to interrupt this and chase a rabbit with Catherine. So Catherine used to call me her favorite narcissist. She probably still doesn't. So this is my story in my desk drawer right now. Is a small plaque that Catherine gave me that says, "Jesus loves everyone, but I'm his favorite." So those of you who know me know that I have only had 1 or 2 good ideas in my entire career, and so I think I would just double down on my original talk. I think one of the things that I have realized is that uncertainty is not a flaw or a bug. It's the central truth of our lives. And I was texting with a friend of mine today, and I used the phrase, "We make the way by walking." And so I think I would just double down on that idea.
I think if I had a chance to do this again, I would go back and pick up a lot of what's already been said, especially what Dr. Miller said in terms of going back and understanding that change will happen. Somebody told me one time that the only person who likes change is a baby with a dirty diaper. And I think there's truth in that, because we do get very comfortable with what we know. And I think that as we go, and I tell students many times, I have Kleenex and coffee and chocolate in my office, and depending on the day of the week, I need one or the other of those. But there's one piece of advice that I go back to that somebody told me, and I think it's so important, is that you are not big enough to mess up God's plan for you. No matter how many times you mess it up, you're not bigger than his plan. And so I think there is value in being willing to change, as Dr. Major said, but also peace in knowing that you are not going to mess it up. And I think that's the direction I would go, and I would explore that.
Thank y'all so much. Our next question is a bit of a callback to one of Dr. Major's pieces of advice in seeking wisdom from your elders. And so if you had an opportunity to hear a lecture from either a current faculty member or a former faculty member at MC, who would you like to hear from, and why would you choose that person?
They keep handing the mic to me first. I don't know what that means. I've been thinking on this all day because I'm like, there's so many who I have heard from. There's so many who I get to hear from all the time, and that's a blessing. And most of the young ones in the room won't know, but I would love to hear a lecture from Jerry Cannon. All the chemistry people. And so I had him for organic chemistry, and we called him the smiling assassin because he was always polished, always really mild in his demeanor, but then he'd slay you with an organic 1 test out of nowhere. But he also had this like twinkle in his eye and this joy that was, you could see the subcurrent. And again, just wisdom. He would drop just little nuggets here and there, and still does. And so that's one of those, I would want to hear from Jerry Cannon.
Oh goodness. Okay. This one has been more of a stump for me than any of the rest of them. So I haven't been here as long, and I don't have that history in terms of graduating from MC. So I'm not, the names, I regret that I did not know some of those. But in my time here, and I'm not following directions because I'm gonna name more than one person. Okay, so I got to thinking, and it was like there was different people, but for different reasons. And I guess I would start with Tom Williams. He was my go-to for practical advice. He just gave the most down-to-earth practical advice, and I loved that. Michael, my colleague, and I, years ago before COVID ever started, we would have lunch probably at least 3 times a week with Frank and Bill Stark. And Bill Stark, it was like walking into a Far Side cartoon. Some of y'all, is Far Side still a thing? Do y'all know? Okay. People my age know Far Side. But it was to be like walking into some kind of Far Side cartoon, just having lunch with him. I miss that. I miss that a lot. He just had a really great perspective. I think Debbie Norris was probably the greatest administrator that I worked with. She's got some wisdom that, I don't know, I just like to hear what she has to say. And then Buddy Wagner is probably my all-time mentor and probably one of the best humans that God ever put on this planet. And then there's just something that nags me. I think that I've still got a lot to learn from Kirk Ford. But I wasn't around him a whole lot, but just through Faculty Senate. And so some days in those Faculty Senate days way back then, I was like, you know, I think I've got a lot to learn from him. And then I didn't ever really get a chance. So I don't know, my list just goes on and on. Maybe if I live long enough, I'll get to fulfill all that.
Yeah, no, those are awesome. Yeah, so Bill Stark's grandson is a student here now.
Really?
I don't know if you know that or not. Yeah, he does need to. You mentioned Joe Cooper, one of the wisest people I have ever known in my life, and wish that we could talk to Joe again. John Metters, who just retired, right? Certainly one of the wisest, kindest people that I know in terms of that. Yeah, Kirk, definitely. Bill, definitely. Yeah, yes to all of these.
We've had some great.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Billy Lytle who was here when I came to do my master's. I didn't get to know him as well as I wish that I had. But what I know about him was that he was one of the most encouraging, one of the most, one of the kindest, one of the most creative people that I have met. And I think if I had a chance to hear from Billy, that would be a treasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And so our last question that we have for y'all is, as this class of mortarboard scholars and the class of 2026 in general prepares to graduate, what is one brief parting word of advice that you would leave with this class?
I'll start. There's a song that has the lyric, "Stay young, keep your heart in motion." Those of you who are older will know that. But what I take from that is so much of what Dr. Major said. Stay active, stay young, enjoy life. It's really easy once you graduate to get into the grind or to get into the groove. But remember that a groove without the ability to move becomes a tune. So get into the groove, do what you gotta do, but stay young.
That's good. Again, Dr. Majors kind of hit at it, but I'll take it a little bit different. Like, there is so much beauty in the world to be seen in so many ways. And we pass by it often without even giving a second thought. And like, y'all see me posted up out on the quad benches, my third home, other than Cups, my second home. My office, my first home. But but like, why I would say that is like, currently the Japanese magnolias are blooming. And I just love sitting and looking at them. And I would say, we so often, and I always tell students, like, I like to go outside and pet the bushes just to see what they feel like. And like, that's a real story, and I do it. If you say, why is that man touching the shrubbery? And why do I say that? Is I'm like, there's so much to take in that is easily just passed by, that I think, but the inverse of that, cultivating wonder, and that's where David touched on it, cultivating wonder and absorbing in beauty, going to museums, reading good books, like, there's so much that you can just get in that groove of doing the 9 to 5, and to my pre-meds out there, the 7 to 7. And so, like, take in something beautiful every day.
would say when I was pondering this, and again, I think it just speaks to just what great company that we're in. I've always admired David and kind of put him up here on a pedestal in terms of just sheer intellect and genius and those types of things. So I was rather validated that I thought, you know what, we think kind of alike on some things. So I started feeling pretty good about myself there. But for this last piece of advice, I guess, it's something that actually my father told me, and he probably is the wisest man I've ever known, and I certainly connected with talking to your parents when you can. There's not much I wouldn't give to have one more cup of coffee with that man. But when I was young, like teenager-y kind of young, I remember him saying something about, you don't ever let fear make a decision for you. And I'm pretty sure I just rolled my eyes because it made no sense to me whatsoever. But the older I got, and when I had children, and then, even today, sometimes I find myself asking, like, is that fear that's keeping you from doing that? And I wished I would have embraced that wisdom a lot earlier than I did in life. There's always going to be things that cause you to pause and maybe feel anxious or afraid. And fear's not necessarily a bad emotion, but if it becomes so overwhelming that it's the thing making the decisions for you, then you've given all of your power away. And there's just too much. There's too much beauty to see. There's too many things to experience. There's just too much life to live to let fear be the thing that controls all that.
So Catherine actually took one of mine. No, you're fine. I think there are two messages that I take away from the gospel on a regular basis. One of them is, don't be afraid. Just don't be afraid. The other one is, God loves you. Do better.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom with us. This brings us to the end of our 2026 Mortar Board last lecture. I want to say thank you to you, Dr. Majors, again for thank you for your wisdom and for your impact on this university and the students in this room and beyond. And we're very thankful for you and thankful for you being here. All right, so thank you to everyone else in the room for coming tonight. And we ask that if we have any other past lecturers in the room, I know we do, that you join us on stage for a photo after this is all concluded. And yeah, we hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you all for coming.